Do you know Manny Fialco?
I do.
Is he a fraternity brother of yours?
No. Well,
he an API?
he's. I don't know if he was API. He is a. He went to Emory. I know.
You're familiar with Ichthus Community Church, Community Trust?
I have knowledge of it, but I don't know. I know that it's bought the loan on the shelter.
Okay. You know that Manny Fialco is affiliated with the Ichthus Community Trust?
I don't know what. I don't know if he owns a trust. He's somehow in some kind of capacity advisor. I don't know who owns the trust.
Okay. You recall discussing a transaction with Mr. Fialco where you and he were potentially going to buy the notes that Mercy Housing held on the task force?
Well, let's be clear. I personally have never been involved in buying the note.
You've personally been involved in discussions about Mr. Fialco buying the note at the task force, correct?
Yes. Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, it's. It'll take me a few minutes to answer this question.
I want specifically, how did it come about that you had discussions with Manny Fialco about buying the notes?
Okay. I became aware that Mr. Fialco, I believe, answered the advertisement that the shelter had to sell the shelter. He, I believe, made a bid on the shelter when it was put up for sale. Subsequent, I don't think he wasn't successful in that bid, or his bid wasn't recognized. Subsequent to that, when Mercy made it known to folks that they were interested in selling the loan, we, through our attorneys, looked at the possibility of CAP buying the loan, or an affiliate. We weren't successful in that endeavor, and then subsequent to that, the loans, either the loans were for sale, they weren't for sale, they came back on the market, and in discussions with Fialco, he said, "What do you think about me buying the loans?" I said, "That's up to you," and that's how the discussion began, I believe.
Who brought up the conversation between you and Mr. Fialco about the loans being for sale?
Who brought up the conversation?
Did you tell him the loans were for sale, or did he come to you?
I think I brought it up.
Okay, you brought it up. And you knew the loans were for sale because you had been talking with Pete Walker and others at Mercy Housing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You have no business relationship with Mercy Housing, no pre-existing business relationship with Mercy Housing, do you?
No.
Okay. Mr. Fialco is a member of, or his company is a member of CAP, correct?
Yes.
Now, initially, you and Mr. Fialco discussed your participating in the purchase of the notes, personally.
Not me personally.
Who?
CAP.
Okay.
Or an affiliate of CAP.
And then Mr. Fialco decided he wanted to go on his own. Is that how it happened?
What happened is that, again, we weren't successful in buying the note for whatever reason. They wouldn't, we couldn't close the gap in the discussion. And in conversations, the building was still for sale. And I made Mr. Fialco aware of the fact that perhaps he would have a better chance of buying the note than we did. And it was clear that Mercy was looking for a buyer.
It's true that Mercy would not sell the note to CAP because they did not find CAP to be, they didn't want to sell it to CAP as an organization, correct?
I have no idea what their intention was.
Why did they tell you they would not sell?
They did not tell us.
Hold on, let me finish my question. Why did they tell you, what was your understanding of why they didn't accept your offer?
There was no understanding. The discussions were cut off at the last minute. I don't know if it was over documentation. I don't know over what it was, but they didn't sell it to us.
Okay. Now, isn't it true that you and Mr. Fialco discussed his using an organization that would be unidentified and unaffiliated with CAP in order to buy the loans?
I did not enter. Mr. Fialco may have told me he was going to do something. I did not advise him to that.
Okay, but you understood Mr. Fialco was going to use a name that would not be affiliated with CAP when he went to buy the notes.
He had no relationship to CAP. It was his business. Okay. I don't have a relationship with Ms. Fialco of representing CAP.
You missed my question. Yeah. My question was, you and Mr. Fialco had discussions about him using a name of a company that would not be affiliated with CAP when he approached Mercy, correct?
Perhaps, but it had nothing to do with... I'm trying to understand your question.
Sir, my question is very simple. My question is, you and Mr. Fialco had a discussion in which the subject was Mr. Fialco was going to use a name of a company that would not be affiliated with CAP.
What do you mean by affiliation? There would be no reason to have a company.
It wouldn't be Fialco and Company. It would be something like Ichthus that nobody knew what it was. Right. Correct?
Not correct.
You had no such discussion with Mr. Fialco.
Mr. Fialco?
Sir, let me finish my question. You had no such, is your testimony under oath that you had no such discussion with Mr. Fialco about using a name that would appear more palatable to Mercy to sell to?
Mr. Fialco told me that perhaps he would use a vehicle that he wanted to use. He gave me no excuse why he wanted to do that. Did I have knowledge that he was going to use another vehicle? Yes. I had no knowledge of whether he owned the vehicle or what affiliation it had with him.
Let him finish answering the question. You keep cutting him off, and let him answer the question.
No, he keeps missing the question.
No. Well, let him answer the question. You're being rude.
Then
you ask a question, let him answer it, then you
object
can
to the
follow
form.
It's not a form. It's a rudeness in not letting the witness answer.
If your question is was he using a vehicle why he was using that vehicle, I have no knowledge to why he's using the vehicle, whether it was appropriate for Mercy or appropriate CAP. It had no relationship to CAP.
Okay. Are you done?
Okay. Did I know that he was going to use a vehicle? He talked about using a vehicle. I don't know whether he owns that vehicle. I don't know whether or not it has anything to do with him or not.
Okay. Now, your testimony then under oath is there was never a discussion between you and Mr. Fialco about why he would use a different vehicle.
There was a discussion, okay. But why? I have no why he was doing. I don't know. I didn't advise him. He may have told me that he was using another vehicle.
Okay. Are you saying that there was never a discussion about why he was using another vehicle?
What is why? If your question is why he's using a vehicle, what he wanted to do, he may have told me, but I don't know why.
Okay. What did he tell you?
He told me he was thinking about using a vehicle for his own purposes, for whatever purposes that was. It was separate from him, not separate from him. I don't know what his motivation was. It wasn't. If it was something to do with, it had nothing to do with CAP. If it had something to do with Mercy, that was his business. I did not advise him. I did not discuss with him why or why not.
Okay. Sir, my question to you has been, did you have a discussion in which he discussed why he wanted to use a different vehicle?
I had that discussion.
Now my question is, what did he tell you was his reason for wanting to use a different vehicle?
I don't recall. He said he wanted to use a separate vehicle for whatever purposes I don't recall what.
Okay, so your testimony is you had this conversation with Mr. Fialco about him using a separate vehicle. He told you why he wanted to, and as you sit here today, 2 weeks later, you can't remember why.
What's the reference to 2 weeks later?
How long ago was your discussion with Mr. Fialco?
This discussion occurred perhaps last summer when he first approached Mercy, I think, to buy the loan. It had nothing to do with the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
He discussed many things about why or what he should do, how he should do it. Keep in mind, we had a 3-month negotiation with Mercy, which wasn't successful.
Under oath, your testimony is that what you wanted to do at this time frame included have Mercy rework the note and let the task force off of a foreclosure?
Not at this time frame, no.
You wanted them foreclosed.
I wanted them to either, yes, to foreclose or do something else, whatever power they have as a lender.
You wanted them to drive the task force out.
Well, I wanted them to take over the building as a lender if they couldn't exercise their remedies.
Because with all of your business contacts and money that you get from the taxpayers and your members, you had not been able to accomplish it, correct?
Object to the form.
I don't link the two.
You had not been able to accomplish it by your other means, correct?
I don't think the actions we were taking was in this context was to close the shelter.
Which actions did you take that were not designed to close the shelter?
Well, I think for 10 years we've complaining about the shelter. I mean, you're talking about the last 2 years. And you're talking about the last 2 years. Now, my action, you're referring to Dan Cathy and referring to this. These are actions that we took because we were worried about the neighborhood. We're still worried about the neighborhood. So this linking, this is our last resort. We're going to be worried about the neighborhood whether they foreclose or not.
Can you think of any strategy you ever considered to cause injury to the task force that you did not carry out or take steps towards performing?
Any strategy to injure the task force?
Right. That you did not actually take steps to carry out?
No.
Okay.
I was introduced
Counsel, are you going to not...
Don't stop speechifying. Let him answer the question. Make your objection.
Counsel, are you going to nod your head with the appropriate response and suggest the response at the same time? Is that what you're planning on doing? It's not on the camera. Are you nodding your head as you ask this question? Counsel?
Go ahead and answer the question.
Counsel, you're nodding your head again. That is an inappropriate coaching of your witness.
You're pathetic. You're an embarrassment to the legal profession. Please answer the question.
The question, can you ask the question again?
That was an extremely professional remark that you just made, Counsel.
Did Mercy open the dialogue with you about the loans?
Yes.
That's all I have.
You know, when you start on personal insults, it demeans the profession.
You have badgered my witnesses for 2 days. You've abused them, and it's been entirely inappropriate. And
What has been inappropriate?
When you came out of your chair and did a speech when I asked 4 questions to my witness, that's an embarrassment, given the way that you've treated the witnesses. And I love that it's on videotape, because we got it all.
Great. We got it all. And you can accept service of the complaint for them.
Bring it on.
And you can...
Bring it on.
Racist.
Racist? That's a joke.
You heard me.
You're pathetic.